Hello, it's Ace Cat. I still don't have a very good intro, but today I'm going to be reviewing the Heavy action figures, both the red and the blue versions, and point out some quite interesting differences between the two of these. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so starting off with one thing that differs between the red Heavy and the blue Heavy, and I don't know if this is because I got the red Heavy used and the blue Heavy new in the box, but I like to think that maybe it's because they released the red Heavy first and then they released the blue Heavy and they just decided to improve upon this. But as you can see, Heavy is holding his minigun, or Sasha, as that's what he named her. Now, you can, right here, you can kind of see there's a little bit of paint wearing off from Heavy's hands onto the handles of the gun. And that is because if you want to get the gun out of his hands, you practically have to pry it out, which is kind of difficult, and it almost makes me feel like I'm about to break something. So I'm going to do this hand again very, very carefully. And there we go. I just realized he was leaning forward where she was kind of keeping his balance. Anyway, the gun itself is very well detailed. It's got levers and buttons and some bolts on the back, or just one button and one lever. I'm assuming that's a button. It might just be a light, blinking light or something. The barrel, unfortunately, does not spin, but it does have little details of where the bolts are supposed to shoot out underneath. It has this really big tank-looking thing. There's probably very specific components to this that have specific names, and I just don't know what they are. Sorry, the camera's having trouble focusing. But he also comes with a shotgun, which is made very nicely. And for some reason, there are other characters such as Pyro, Soldier, and Engineer who all have shotguns, but Heavy is the only one that actually comes with his shotgun, which is kind of interesting. You can put this in the hands of Soldier or Engineer, not Pyro as much. I have tried. You just gotta be careful not to cram it in too far so it doesn't get stuck. But it is painted very nicely, and Heavy comes with two sets of hands. Sets of hands here for holding the minigun, and then he has these two hands for, one for a trigger hand and then an open resting hand for holding the shotgun. Now, this probably won't come across on camera very well, but as you can see, me trying to move this finger here, it's very stiff. But these are the hands that came with the blue Heavy, and I know this because there's a slight, again, it probably won't come off on camera, there's a slight different tone in the color of the skin, and not just the glove part, but they're actually kind of rubberized to where if you take Blue Heavy's minigun here, this is a completely different one because this started to break and I tried to glue it and I got it all messy. Sorry, Heavy. But as you can see, if I just take this, it goes on like that. Like, that was like, what, a second and a half, 2 seconds at most? And then not even a second taking it off. So, yeah, kind of, a little strange, but I think it's because, NECA kind of figured that out after they made the red Heavy, because they always released the red versions first, and then the blue versions second. So now, again, this might also be because that red Heavy I bought used and blue Heavy I bought new. But blue Heavy, his head has a very hard time turning and getting locked into certain positions, whereas red Heavy's does not. I mean, it's still kind of stiff, but it's not as stubborn as Blue Heavy's. But he does have a little bit of head articulation. something that I've noticed between some of the other red and blue action figures is that, and again, this may or may not come across on camera, but the tips of Heavy's bullet here are more of like a darker orange color, where these are almost like a lighter, almost yellow color. Yeah, it probably won't come across on camera, but if it does, then, well, there you go. And of course, here's Blue Heavy holding his shotgun. I gotta say, it looks kind of ridiculous to see Heavy holding the shotgun. Like, I mean, he looks good holding it, but it's like he's the biggest guy, and it's like, you know, normally he's holding like the biggest gun, but then he's just holding this tiny shotgun. It looks kind of stupid sometimes. But anyway, Heavy is one of the Series 2 action figures, and as well as Soldier. And for some reason, both him and Soldier only have this, where he has a swivel cut on his bicep, which is, it doesn't really look right, but it does help for certain positions. But other than that, the articulation on Heavy is pretty good. His elbow moves quite a bit. And for removing his hands, something that I think would have worked out a little bit better for the other figures is that Heavy has a ball joint on his wrist, and then his hand has the hole in it for when you fit it on. Whereas the other figures, it's the other way around, where his wrist would have the hole in it, and then the hand would have the peg. And it's very difficult to get Demo Man's hand into his arm, essentially. Something that I've just kind of noticed over the years of playing Team Fortress 2, and something that's really nice that they actually did for the detailing on the Heavies here, as well as a few other figures, is that if you look at Red Heavy's pants, you'll notice they're kind of like a tan color, and then the Blue Heavy's pants are like a dark bluish, kind of grayish color. The legs don't really have that much articulation. The feet move, of course. They got a little bit of ankle rotation, and of course he's got knees. But you can't really make him like sit down like on the floor or anything, which is a bit unfortunate because I would have loved to see that. As for the faces, and again, this is probably because I got the Blue Heavy new in the box, but his face, that's a little too close. His face seems to be sculpted a little bit better, but at the same time, Red Heavy's doesn't look that bad either. On another note, on a rather interesting note, they all come with these little class portrait cards when you get them new in the box, and no matter what color merc you get, they're always going to be in their red uniform. And it has a code on the back for you to get an in-game item, and depending on what color merc you get, you will get a different item. So if you get Red Heavy, I believe it's the Russian officer hat. It's this really big, fluffy black hat with a big star on the front of it. And then Blue Heavy gets this hat that's called the Tough Guy's Taupe, which is like a winter-themed hat. I'll see if I can put images on the screen, if I can even find these exact hats. But anyway, I'd say Heavy is actually a pretty decent action figure. And before I end this, something that's interesting about... Sorry, Blue Heavy. Something that's interesting about... they don't stand very well, but then again, none of them do. Something that's interesting about his little background file is that it doesn't have his real name listed, because all the other characters will have their actual real names listed, like Demo Man, Engineer, Sniper have their actual real names listed, but then the other characters just have their real names listed as unknown. But here, it just says Heavy Weapons Guy, and there's occupation, theater of operations, birthplace, and some information about him. Something that I forgot to point out in my Team Fortress 2 action figure collection is that if you look at the blue characters, let me grab a red one. Okay, here's the medics. But if you look at the characters, like if you look at Demo Man's face here, like some of them have different facial expressions from the red ones. Like Demo Man has like this kind of almost angry look on his face. And then we take a look at Red Demo Man and he's smiling. And not only that, but Scout looks to have more of like a toothy grin than this one where he only has like a slight smug grin. Heavy almost looks to be a little ticked, and Red Heavy just looks kind of smug. I don't know how to describe him. Well, anyway, something that's a little unfortunate about Blue Heavy's description here is that it doesn't list that Heavy has a PhD in literature, which is kind of funny because the medic lost his medical license and he doesn't have a... So technically Heavy is more of a doctor than him. But yeah, Heavy is a good action figure. I gotta say, Heavy's one of the best ones, like, overall. Like, not just, like, design look, but also articulation and the way he was, like, made. The only gripe, I guess, would be that the Red Heavy's hands are, like, really stiff, so... If for whatever reason, because since these figures are limited release, they're not really that easy to come by nowadays. If for whatever reason you'd like to get one, I would probably recommend on trying to get a Blue Heavy. But if you want to get a Red Heavy and just try and cram his gun and get all this paint worn off onto the handles, then I'd say go for it. Overall, I give Red Heavy a 9 out of 10, and Blue Heavy a 10 out of 10. And I'm not just saying that because blue is my favorite color, no. Anyway, this has been Ace Kermit Cat. Thank you for watching my review on the Heavy. Next review will be the Sniper. Thank you for watching.